to seamless logistics in the Golden Quarter. I must apologise, firstly, because of the time of year it is. I was unavailable on Thursday at 3 o'clock, so Siobhan has very kindly agreed to allow me to pre-record it, which feels like a little bit of a cheat because I think I'm on take 57 at this stage. But I must also thank Siobhan and Duncan for the opportunity to come and talk to you today. At the end of my presentation, my esteemed colleague, Mr. Kevin O'Reilly, the head of CRM with DPD, is going to come and answer your questions with all his worldly logistics knowledge. I'm sure you'll be enlightened afterwards. Thank you. So, who are DPD and who am I to speak to you about the Golden Quarter? So as I said, I'm the Regional Sales Manager at DPD Ireland. I have survived and thrived through 6 very different peaks with DPD Ireland. During that time, I have been known to answer phones in our CS department. I have answered emails, I have responded to social media queries, I've sorted parcels, I've delivered parcels, I've driven Sprinter vans without, thankfully, hitting anything. So I have a wide range of experience at getting through peak. I treat every peak personally like a bit of a marathon. There's a lot of training, there's a lot of preparation, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of dread that comes with peak. So like 21 miles, 13 weeks can seem like a long distance to get through. But like with every marathon, it's the planning and the preparation that you put in advance, the training, the hours, that really can be the difference between the race of your dreams and an absolute total nightmare that you just can't seem to see the end of. So I suppose like everything, when you're in the middle of peak, it can seem daunting, it can seem overwhelming, it can seem never-ending, just like a marathon. But on that Christmas Eve, when you pull down the shutters and you've the last parcel delivered and the last customer looked after, the sense of euphoria and borderline relief is palpable. It's a fantastic adrenaline rush, I suppose, in some ways. Maybe I'm just strange, but I kind of enjoy peak. So who are we? DPD Ireland is Ireland's largest dedicated parcel carrier. We have 37 depots around the country. We have 7 in Northern Ireland. We have 30 in the south. We have 6 in Dublin, 2 in Cork, and Sligo Leitrim very kindly cooperation share 1. So that'll give you an idea of the coverage that we have every day. We utilise a lot of data, a lot of IT to enable our customers to receive real-time tracking on their parcels. So at every point of interaction in the DPD network, there's a scanning event that we can share with customers and consignees. I could spend a week talking about this slide, what we do. We're very fortunate. Everything we do is next day delivery. We don't have too many variations from that. Our percentages at the moment are 99.8% next day delivery throughout the 37 depots. Everything is real-time tracking. We have predict messaging, TAPA accreditation. We have access to an international network, a road network across Europe, and you will start to see DPD start to appear in Asia in the coming months. There's a lot of extra offerings that we have, but our primary service is next day deliveray. As I mentioned and touched on before, we have TAPA accreditation for our logistics hub. We have a sortation hub in Athlone that has grown from 66,000 square foot to over 86,000 square foot in the last 10 years. We have a bespoke logistics warehouse that has the TAPA accreditation attached to it. So we have a really strong offering for a lot of customers. The TAPA accreditation is particularly interesting to healthcare customers who see it as a validation of our commitment to quality and service for their product and their customers. So as a result of COVID and growing volumes and the evolution of e-commerce in Ireland, in 2021, we are investing 5 million into our hub. So at the moment, we have 2 sortation conveyor systems. We have 2 sortation conveyor systems currently in operation in our hub, and we're adding a third one to enable us to process up to 21,000 parcels an hour. So currently our capacity is somewhere around 17,000 parcels an hour. That investment is going to bring our capacity up to 21,000, which is a significant increase. And that's all in response to the growth of e-commerce, COVID, and the drive towards the online business. It was famously said at one of the DPD conferences that we were evolving into an IT company who happens to deliver parcels. And that's becoming a very serious reality. So everything that we do is technology led. Every scanning event, every sortation point, it's all driven by technology. So our scanners, our drivers utilize the Honeywell scanners. They have access to all the data around the parcel on that scanner. It allows them to plot and plan their routes. That's the next project that we're rolling out, is an automated plotting route for our drivers to enable them to, again, operate even more efficiently than they currently do. As I said, one of the key things that we have is our predict window notification. So anyone who's ever had a delivery from one of the DPD drivers will tell you that you, generally speaking, you get your text message or your email, provided that the sender has given this data to us, to say that your parcel delivery will be coming, and your driver's name is Louise, and she will be with you between 11 and 12. So it's a really important piece of contact for us. One of our larger customers, when they switched to us, when we reviewed the account 6 months later, the key takeaway that we took from it was that after those 6 months, calls to their customer services department was reduced by 80%. That's really a huge number. And that was all based around the reduction in calls to their centre asking, where is my parcel? When will it be delivered? The predict notification gives that customer that certainty that their parcel is out for delivery and when it's going to be delivered. So it's a really important tool in reducing customer contacts. And that's just a sample of what it looks like. So what is the golden quarter? The golden quarter is technically it's the last 13 weeks of the year. So anything from the 4th of October onwards now, we as a company will see our volume starting to increase. And I'm sure that you as a retailer will see a corresponding increase. That usually peaks around Black Friday, November 26th. So we'll start to see a significant uplift from the 20th of November through to about the 30th. And then it generally tends to taper away the closer we get to Christmas again. There's a secondary small spike around the January sales, less frantic, less urgent in its profile, but nonetheless still a spike. So that tends to be the golden quarter, or peak, as we like to call it. It's that steady incline through October into November, peaking with Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Cyber Tuesday, and then declining again away to Christmas Eve. So what we tend to see is that Christmas week tends to be quieter than the previous 5 or 6 weeks, because at that point, e-commerce is dying away because of that extra complication with delivery. So people at that stage looking to buy tend to go for the bricks and mortar store where they can be certain that they're taking home a product. It just doesn't seem to be as strong in terms of volumes as the forerunning 6 or 7 weeks. So as all of you will know, the growth of e-commerce has been enormous, and COVID has certainly driven it on again. So 63% of internet users are now buying clothes and shoes and accessories. But one of the big growth areas that we've actually seen is in the growth of food online. So your pre-packed meals, your ready-made meals, your food kits. The likes of Doe Brothers in Galway have had an outrageously successful year based on their pizza kits. And so we're seeing that growth all the time, and that's not something that's about to change. The CSO ran a report, and some of the key findings were that people chose online shopping for 3 reasons: better price, the convenience of delivery, and the range of products available. Obviously, our focus is on the convenience of delivery and making that final mile experience really, really smooth for customers, really smooth, really reassuring, really consistent. A better range of goods, that's indisputable. And well, we all know prices vary depending on where you are. But what's interesting here is the volume of spending that you see. And you can see the spike in spending on cards around that peak time. So it goes from 1.5 million up to 2.25 million. So it's a really huge spike around that time in terms of consumer spending. So the big question why you're all here is, how do you have a seamless golden quarter? The best laid plans can and will go astray. So what can you do? What can you do to minimize the stress? There's a couple of things, and it's five. We've identified 5 key things that we feel are really important. There's forecasting, expectations, data, your social media, and your packaging. So let's talk about forecasting. Forecasting is something that we start doing nearly from February. Immediately after a peak, we start looking at the following peak, and that's where our planning starts, is in February. We analyse the figures for the previous year, we identify trends, we identify spikes, and we start projecting our figures for the following year in terms of volumes. So we would look at Black Friday, week 20 in 2020, we would look at our average COVID parcel volumes, and we would look at our Black Friday the previous year, 2019. So you can see Black Friday 2019, we handled 770,000 parcels. That grew to 865, so nearly 900,000 parcels in 2020. The growth there would give you an idea. So if you look at what your Black Friday retail sales were in 2019, and then look to 2020, it's reasonable to assume that you'd have a similar percentage growth again. And they're really important numbers. You need to be looking at those numbers. You need to be looking at them each week certainly for the last 6 or 7 weeks. If you're going to have a sale, if you're going to partake in Black Friday sales, that's a really important piece of information. If you're going to have a different sale at a different point during the golden quarter, or you're just going to rely on your January sales, you need to look at those forecasts. And more importantly, when you get that data, you need to share it with your carrier. So your relationship could be with your local driver. You could have an account manager, depending on your carrier, depending on how you're fixed. You'll have different points of contact. But it's really important that if somebody in your carrier is not asking you for this information, that you go and talk to them. Because if your collection vehicle reaches capacity, have they got a backup plan? Is there a second vehicle that they can lay on? They're not going to know that, and they're not going to be able to give you that reassurance unless you've provided them with some details. So communicating those numbers and those forecasts with your carrier is going to give you a certain level of reassurance that what you pack on a day is going to get collected. It's really important to have a line of communication. And if you see a spike coming, that you're talking to them the whole time to let them know. Because to be fair, while we do all this forecasting, we're not psychic. So if you have information that we don't have or that your carrier doesn't have, it's relevant. It's really important. Second thing we talk to you about is consumer expectations. It's lovely to be able to say, I guarantee you next day delivery. It's virtually impossible in logistics to fulfill that. So working with customers and managing their expectation about what is feasible, particularly around peak times, is really important. It's really important for 2 reasons. The first reason being, you're setting yourself up to fail if you overpromise. If you're saying, we're going to do next day delivery, it's really out of your hands once you hand it to a carrier as to whether you can or not. So you're automatically putting yourself under pressure. If you give yourself a little bit of a window, say it's 1 to 3 days, you have a little bit of breathing space, the customer isn't expecting it till day 3, it's delivered on day 2, you're still winning, they're still happy. It's really important that we don't set ourselves up to fail with that. The second reason that this is important is that if you overpromise, you're going to create more work for yourselves. So your teams are going to have to handle more queries. Where is my order? Why is it delayed? Why isn't it here? When will it be here? That's all going to drive traffic to your customer services team at a time at which they're already busy enough. So managing their expectations is going to buy you a little bit of time and take a little bit of pressure off those teams. There's lots of ways to stay in touch with your consumer, right? Check your notifications. Check what notifications you're sending from your back-end system. If you're using Shopify, if you're using ShipStation, are your notifications going out? Are they up to date? Are they accurate? Is the data on them accurate? Secondly, check the notifications that your carriers are sending. Are they sending them? At what point are they sending them? Are they sending them coming through the hub? Are they sending them when they're out for delivery? Are they sending them as pre-advice before the parcel's shipped? Check the communications. Test them. Send a parcel. See what exactly your customers are seeing. Be sure that your customer services team know what your customer is seeing. So if they're getting one notification, let your customer services team know that this is what they're getting, so that they can reassure your customer that when it's out for delivery, they're going to get that communication. If you're saying that you're going to get a communication and they're not, it's going to again drive more queries into your CS team. So it's not too late to check this. Send a parcel, test it, see what your customer is seeing. There's lots of ways to keep in touch with them. If you get updates from your carrier about service issues due to weather, delayed trailers, anything like that, pass that on, feed it on, use your social media. This is where it's really important. Your Instagram, your Facebook, use that information to pass it on. If there's delays in a certain area that your carrier has communicated to you, share that with your customers. It gives you more credibility. You're not hiding anything from them. Okay? Oh, my favorite subject, Eircodes. Eircodes are wonderful. They're amazing. I was skeptical when they first came in, but actually, in fact, they are gold in logistics. If you gave DPD Ireland nothing else but you gave them an Eircode, we would still manage to deliver that parcel. It's really important that when we get to the final mile experience, that we give the carrier company as much relevant data as we possibly can. So phone numbers, names, full addresses, but the Eircode is key because it's building specific. It's virtually impossible to get it wrong. Unlike our colleagues in the north, they use BT codes. They're street specific. There's still a little bit of ambiguity around it. Eircodes are amazing. They will land you to the doorstep 99.9% of the time. It's critical that not only are you capturing it, but you're sharing it with the carrier and you're ensuring that the carrier is sharing it with the driver. That data flow is really, really important. Get the Eircode on the box. Get it on the label. Make sure it's being used. At the moment, we're running a project. I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about it, Project Carto, and it's all about mapping and mapping drivers' routes, and it's Eircode driven. You'll see at the moment, you'll see a lot of drivers across all carriers, and they're using applications like Road Warrior, Auto Address, and what they're doing is they're quite simply they're utilizing Eircodes and it's routing a map for them. So this is easy wins for carriers. The easier it is for a carrier to deliver a parcel, the better an experience your customer's going to have. They're not going to be ringing them looking for directions. They're not going to be ringing them saying, I couldn't find the house. I'll come back out tomorrow and try, or I'll drop it to such and such a location. They're going to get it to the doorstep every time. There's no excuse when you give them an Eircode. It really is a critical piece. And to be fair, the vast majority of consumers online now are used to being asked for it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to ask for it. It's really, really important. So I'm going to deviate slightly because I wanted to talk about packaging, but I also wanted to talk about from a sustainability process. So your packaging and ensuring that you have enough and sufficient supplies of the right packaging coming into peak is really important. You don't want to suddenly discover we've run out of X, Y, or Z packaging and it's a week-long lead-in time. It's going to slow down all your dispatch. It's really important that you make sure that all your consumables are prepped for. And that comes out of doing your forecasting and your numbers and making sure that you have sufficient coverage of packaging for what you're forecasting for. It's a simple thing, but easy to forget about. So I'm going to deviate slightly into sustainability. It's the goal of DPD as a group to drive down our CO2 per parcel. Des Travers, our CEO, is committed to reducing it by 30% in 2025. Part of that is rolling out electric vehicles. You might see a few green DPD vans in Dublin and the urban areas. I believe there's another one going into Bray shortly. So you're going to start seeing that, and it's really important. But packaging comes into this as well very strongly. We're going to roll out, another aside, we're going to roll out we are rolling out Project Breathe, which is monitoring all of our air quality in Dublin at the moment for the universities and things like that. So sustainability, corporate social responsibility, that whole umbrella comes in really tightly with your packaging side. So it's something that is definitely becoming more relevant. You'll see the likes of the larger shippers like Decathlon, IKEA, people like that, being much more aware of their corporate social responsibility. And that's not something that stops with the large players. It's everybody's duty, I suppose, to drive down that CO2 footprint where we can. So in terms of packaging, and I suppose for you, as you go through peak, what would be really important is to look at your packaging. Is the packaging appropriate? Is it the most practical packaging? Do we have enough of it? Are we using too much of it? Are we using the right things? We're encouraging customers where possible to use recyclables. We're moving ourselves to try and reduce things. But every time that you package a parcel, the more packaging you put into it, the longer it takes to pack. So I suppose there's a relevance there in how to make your golden quarter more seamless is to reduce time spent packaging. And that's probably something that you need to look at from the point of view is my packaging, is it appropriate? Is it the right packaging for this? Am I using an awful lot of unsustainable packaging? Because customers notice these things too. There's nothing worse than you order something online. It comes out with 5 million of those popcorn kernels. No offense if you're using them. Or it comes wrapped in 5 miles of bubble wrap or things like that. There are alternatives. There are better recyclable alternatives to that. And all of these things are quite time consuming to work with as well. And that's going to cut down on the number of parcels that your dispatch team can dispatch over the course of a day. So it's really important to look at that from a few angles for peak. It's time consuming, it's costly. It's really very costly. Packaging can be extremely costly. But really from a peak point of view, it's time consuming. You need to make sure you have enough of it. You need to make sure you have enough of the right packaging and that it's being used in the right way. And obviously recycling it as much as we possibly can. So I think I've bored you enough now. The key takeaways, please plan. It's not too late. It's like running a marathon. It's not too late to do a little bit of training. I know 1 or 2 crazy people who've done marathons on 2 training sessions. They weren't normal. It didn't end well, but they did get through it. It's not too late to plan. Run your numbers, do your forecasting, talk to your carrier, check your supplies, check the communications that you're getting to your customers. All of these will reduce the stress and the headache that you're going to experience. There's always going to be a certain amount of it, but it's where we can reduce it to minimize it, makes it less stressful. So again, your planning, your preparation, and be proactive when you have a problem. And you should get through it relatively unscathed. Look, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to pass you over to Siobhan and Kevin O'Reilly, and Kevin is going to share the benefit of a couple of years in logistics if you have any questions you'd like to ask. Thank you.